Welcome to BarOne. We are brought to you by absolutely nobody. However, I would like to take this opportunity to shout out some friends and creators that I think you would enjoy as well. ZenDen Sessions is a Brooklyn-based, COVID-safe concert series and platform for independent artists and creators. Not only does ZenDen Sessions provide a performance outlet for artists during these tumultuous times, they also host a number of online initiatives designed for empowerment, connections, and wellness. This includes cash prize song competitions, artist interviews, online listening parties, numerology readings, wellness clinics, and interviews with music industry professionals designed to give the independent musician more tools to pave their own careers. Check out the link in the description to connect with ZenDen Sessions on Instagram and Clubhouse, and turn those notifications on to stay up to date on online events and small private outdoor live shows. My name's Tim, and today on BarOne, we have a very special guest, songwriter, creator, artist, singer, guitar player, music industry killer, professional legend, as they say in the world, Geena Kaye. Woo! What's going on?
Oh, I just thought about how long it's been since I've heard applause from me, which has been a long time.
You want me to press it again? I got you. Ready? Woo! Geena.
Oh my God, it's been so long since I last played a show that I just forgot the rush of applause.
Yeah, a little closer to the mic.
Yeah, it's been a minute since I played for anyone. So it's nice to get some, live applause, I guess.
Yeah,
live,
yeah.
Fake live.
No, but it frustrates me because I feel like throughout this year, we've gone through so much, and I would have hoped that it, at least for the public, it taught us how to value some of the things that we don't necessarily value or think that we should, like live performances, musicians, the arts, like these things that actually matter to our mental health. But yeah, I even, last episode, I was reading a news article where Madison Square Garden and Barclays are opening up 10% capacity, but for sporting events, and basically the priority is going to be people who have box seats and are season ticket holders, but like, okay, so what about all of my musicians friends who pay their bills, playing
That's
shows?
Kind of unfortunate. I mean, I understand the importance of sporting events, of course, but it's easier to watch, let's say, a football game on TV and get the same thing out of it than you can't watch a concert on TV and say that it's the same experience,
Right.
The importance of being present in the moment and, feeling the sweat of other people against you, and like the vibration of the bass when it's too loud, or maybe you're on the wrong side of the stage, or you're too close. All of those things, and having the artist like there on the stage, you can't even see them properly, but they're there, and that's really important. It just makes the show experience.
I don't know about the sweat, but I'll take everything else. I never like getting sweat on, but that's okay too.
I mean,
it depends on the vibe. Like, of course, EDM, sort of clubby vibes. Okay.
I mean, I'm thinking like festivals, like
right.
Gov Ball or Coachella or whatever. But God, I miss those. I miss festivals so much. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. Do you, as an artist, like is it a different vibe when you see these professional shows? Are you more analytical with it, or do you kind of just learn how to appreciate them for what they are, like any other fan who aren't musicians?
I think it was harder at first when I started being more present in the industry and thinking about my place in the industry. I wouldn't, be able to enjoy shows necessarily, or even going to shows for work. It would be hard to look at them and think, this is an experience I'm just enjoying. But I think as time goes on and you get a little bit more comfortable in your role, you need to remember why you started making music or being involved in music in the first place. And that's because these experiences, going to shows, are so life-changing. When I think back on my very favorite live performance that I've ever seen, it was Florence and the Machine at Gov Ball 2 years ago. And I just remember being...
Small flex, okay, there you go.
I just remember being there and thinking, how can I think about anything right now? I'm just in this experience. I have no thoughts other than, wow, amazing, fantastic, mind blowing. And that was it. I wasn't thinking about where is she standing on stage, or who are the dancers, or what does the sound like? You know, what's the sound quality like? It was just, I'm in this moment, and that's priceless.
Yeah. And I think there's a graduation process that goes on with musicians to where like you do have a phase where you're super analytical about everything. But that's like the growing pains. But then when you can just appreciate a show, and might not be like technically the best thing you've ever seen, but does it speak to you? You know what I mean?
Right. The speaking to you part, I think, is so important. You know, it's good. It's good to be analytical. It's not a bad thing by any means, but if you spend too much time being analytical, I think it takes away from the joy of the moment. And why would you want to lose the joy of the moment?
Wow. Why would you want to lose the joy of the moment? So what joys do you find in your moments as a musician in COVID? How do you scratch that itch?
Oh my gosh. It's strange because at the beginning of COVID, I work, my regular job is in digital marketing. So suddenly my position and everything that I did with my team was so much more important. I mean, not that it wasn't important before, but when you take out the fact that, you know, there's no live experiences, you can't go to radio promo, like do radio stations and stuff like that. It just doesn't work. So suddenly digital is the entire focus, and you can't, you know, you have to find new ideas and find new things to make compelling in this time when everyone is sort of in their own bubble, but in the same collective experience. It's really hard. And when you're spending all of your time thinking about how to make other people happy in that sense, or thinking about the psychology of like, okay, no one wants to see another Facebook Live. No one wants to see another Instagram Live. How do you make those experiences unique when you're caught in that cycle of how am I going to make this better for a fan? It's so hard to spend time in your own music and in your own, you know, creative bubble,
right,
thinking about, okay, how am I going to make music interesting for me still? Because I'm still a person who also has, you know, feelings and is also a fan and also needs creativity just like anyone else. So separating, I think, the thinking of other people and then thinking of yourself was really difficult at the beginning of COVID. It's gotten easier, I would say, throughout the pandemic, because now that we're all home, there's no commute in the morning and there's no commute at night. I can much more easily say, okay, I'll carve out 20 to 30 minutes to sit and play guitar and write a song in the morning or in the evening, much more easily than before.
Yeah, and it kind of levels out the playing field a little bit too with you and other artists. Not that it's a competition, right? But like, you know, I think it's so easy for independent artists to look at like the mainstream and be like, oh, they have all of this, they can tour, they got a tour bus, they got 30 people in their band, they got like a producer, da-da-da. But we're all at home, you know? And from a marketing perspective, this is like a super interesting time. It's super weird. We're all trying to figure out, how do you make this thing right here? This gets boring after a while. Like, I'm tired of looking at this. I'm tired of looking at my screen, and I'm tired of, you know, like being thrown images at. So, I mean, that's a really good point. But you were talking about creative solutions, how to make things like a Facebook Live seem appealing still. And I actually really like what you do on social media, because I think you are very open with your process and your,
thank you,
you know, with your emotions. And I think people love that. I think they love the genuineness and the not trying to hide behind anything super duper like fancy. You know, this is my process. This is who I am as a human being. This is what I'm going through. And I'm sure there's somebody out there going through the same thing.
That's always what I think about. I think about, how can the things that I experience be experienced by other people in a similar way, or how can the current events be processed in a similar way? You know, there's got to be some other girl or some other guy sitting out there thinking, oh my God, you know, the world is falling apart, and yet I still have a roof over my head. I'm still lucky enough to have a job. Why am I so sad? And when I have those moments, I think, okay, well, I'm surely not alone in this. There are other people who are feeling the same thing. How am I going to convert that into something creative or something, musical?
Yeah. And one of your lyrics, I think, is in the song "Sick of Me." There's one of them that stuck out to me. It was like, "My boss is calling me again, and I'm drinking Claws at 2 p.m." Like,
White Claws,
White
yeah.
Claws at 2 p.m. Right? Like, I don't drink White Claws.
Please don't judge.
But I feel that, like, especially as an artist. Damn, I have a boss still. Like, I gotta like, this guy keeps calling me, or gal keeps calling me. And I don't want to do this. I just want to, yeah.
Yeah, there was a time I wrote that song actually quite early in COVID, which I thought was, ironically, the feelings and the mental place that song is in. It should be, 5 or 6 months into COVID, but I wrote it actually at the end of March. And it was, I know. Yeah. Like, now when I think about
you
that,
were there already.
How was I already there? How did I already know that this was going to go on for a year or more? But it's funny how quickly you can go from being a high functioning person, waking up. I would wake up at 6 or 7 a.m., go to a workout class, and then I would shower at the gym and put my face on and do hair, makeup, whatever, and then I'd go to work and I'd work a full day, and then sometimes we'd have shows after work.
Yeah.
So then I'd be going to the shows and then coming home at 11 p.m. at night to just do the whole thing all over again. And now when I think about trying to do that, I mean, I was 30 minutes late getting here because I forgot to charge my phone and then it died and then I couldn't get on the subway and blah, 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 blah. I'm not used to leaving anywhere anymore.
Yeah.
So
No, it's super awkward being around people right now. And obviously, trying to be cautious and things like that. But yeah, it's that idea is so foreign to me. That lifestyle though, and obviously, so me and you are coworkers, right? And that, yeah, I gained like 20 pounds just living that lifestyle. Like, just, but like when you're so used, and I'm kind of glad that we have this time to reflect and think, even though there are people going through a lot of things right now. But yeah, just like eating a bagel every morning. Oh, we have a performance after work. Oh, cool. Yeah, we got all these cocktails, all this beer, and then when you add that onto how much like what you actually drink, like on the weekends. Oh, okay, now I'm drinking 3 or 4 nights a week as opposed to just 1 or 2 nights a week. So it adds up. And so I was just physically, I was working out, but it just took a toll on me. So it was good to be away from that.
that's good for you. I'm glad that you could get away from it because the rest of us are just still buying out the liquor store every Saturday, I recently went to the Trader Joe's liquor store in Union Square for the first time in years. I hadn't been there
liquor
in
store is fire.
so long. It's such a good one, right?
Yeah.
And everything is so cheap and it's just very good and highly recommend, and also do not recommend, do not go there because I ended up, I don't know, I was stocking up because there was a snowstorm. I was like, 10 bottles of wine, that's fine. You know, I'm going to drink them over time. And the cashier was like, okay. I just could tell that he knew that I was not having a party because obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
And that all of that wine was for me.
That's
and I was like, dude, please don't judge me. I live alone. I have 10 plants. Help?
Help. That's awesome. Not really, but I want to touch on your songwriting process because, you have a lot of influences now or things that can affect your songwriting. The pandemic, love life is always a big thing, and just your mental health. What is the process like for you? Do you start writing lyrics? Do you start with a melody? Do you have to get your heart broken before you write a song? What's it like?
It used to always be I have to get my heart broken. Luckily, I've had my heart broken 10 times over that I can just pull into the bag of previous heartbreaks and fish them out and, put on that jacket and re-feel those moments and then write the song and then hopefully take it off again. I try to take it off. I'm perfecting the art of putting it on and then leaving it off. But I would say currently to sort of get myself into a more interesting place with my songwriting, I've been listening to other artists and trying to emulate like the style that they're writing in. So for example, I would sit down and think, okay, I love XYZ song by blah, blah artist. What did they do in that song? And how can I, use that for my own writing? And there were I just wrote a song the other day, which I brought it to my producer and he's like, this is one of the better ones you've written. And I was like, oh yeah, because I really liked 21 by Gracie Abrams, and I've been listening to a lot of Ariana Grande, and I wanted to like have a stream of consciousness, but also something rhythmic. And so I put those two things together, and then this is the song that I wrote. And he looked at me like, yeah, I actually do hear both of those influences in there.
Wow.
Which was kind of funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're a producer. Do you feel for artists it's important to have sort of a musical partner who gets you and can help you? Or do you like to kind of dip and dab in different...
No, I've been working with Ronnie for almost 3 years, 2 years, 2.5 years. We've just grown so much together as him as my producer and me as an artist that we've really developed a keen instinct on how to work well together. I think when you first start working with someone, you have to learn their ins and outs of what.
Oh. That was weird. What was that?
I don't know.
I think the ghost in the machine was like, hey.
The ghost in the machine was like.
For those for visual, I might cut that out later, but the soundboard just went crazy on us. But that was cool. That's funny.
No, but like we've really learned how to get the most out of the other person. And I think when you first start working with someone, you can't know that immediately. You have to grow together, I think, as a production team, really. And, he started to co-write some of my songs with me, which is great. Or I'll bring him an unfinished song and then we'll finish it together and then we'll produce it together. But the level of trust is really high now, where it's like I can give you my deepest, darkest song and I know that you will do it justice to the best of your abilities. So,
wow, that's super good to have that trust. And
yeah, it takes a long time, but it's worth it.
Had you worked with people in the past that you feel like you couldn't trust, or have you been working with this guy since you've been putting out music?
No, I think pregnant pause. I just have to think for a second. I've been making music for so long that I have to think about all the different producers that I went through because my first song that I ever worked on, I was 14.
Wow.
And I trusted those people, but they didn't know me. They knew the songs that I had brought to them, and I could kind of be like, this is what this is about, blah, blah, blah. But they didn't know my hopes and dreams. They didn't know where I'm trying to progress to as an artist. They didn't know where I came from or, the places that I really wanted to go. And it's, you hear the difference between a producer that knows you and a producer that you're just working with.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the difference is. Like Ronnie has seen me come into his studio with 3-day unwashed hair and no makeup. And that's a different experience than you showing up to like a classy, fancy producer's place, looking great and
super manufactured and it was
right. And then it's not as genuine, I would say, as like you coming in and saying, I wrote this song yesterday. I got in a fight with my mom or whatever. And that's what this is about. And now we're going to make something out of it. And then the other person to know the dynamic and like know how that would affect you. And then you putting together the references in the sound palette. Like it's just different. I don't know.
Yeah. And it shows too in listening to your music. It's very well produced. And I think you pop out in the production. You don't get lost in the sounds necessarily. And yeah, it's reminiscent of so many like great songs that I know and that I love. So like great
Thank
job.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. The other day, someone asked me what my music sounds like. And you're going to have to tell me if this is a totally wrong answer, but this is the one that I gave. I said it's like if Robin and the 1975 had a baby and the grandmother is Carole King.
That's really dope. I like that description. I would say so. That's pretty spot on.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm going to use that now from now on.
1975. Wow. I saw them. I used to work at the House of Blues in Boston. Hated that job. But yeah, they would play live a lot at the House of Blues. Good time.
They're so good live. I've seen them probably 4 times. On the first couple of times intentionally, and then the other 2 times I went to a festival and they were playing. And I was like, amazing. One of my favorite bands. Great. I'll just see you again. Cool.
And you hit on something earlier that I want to go back to. You talked about writing songs since you were 14 and collaborating. And I think the last time we spoke about your music, you had talked about working with publishing houses, or like you were literally operating as a songwriter, you know. And that's a super interesting thing too, because we always talk about the 9-to-5s versus being an artist, but there's nuances in that artist category too, because in songwriting, that could be a 9-to-5 as well. And there are a lot of songwriters who identify with that, where they can't fulfill themselves as an artist or be their own thing because they're stuck making money, selling songs, and, you know, sort of the publishing world. So I want you to talk a little bit about that. Have you made that transition fully? Are you still writing songs for folks? You know, what is that like?
You know, when I first graduated from college, I was lucky enough to go to music school, and I worked with a lot of really great classmates and upperclassmen, and we wrote some great songs together. They always ended up being either for another person or for the other person that I was writing with. I don't think that any of those collaborative songs that we did together were ever for me, per se. I always wrote my own stuff by myself. When I graduated, I've always loved songwriting. I've been writing songs since I was 9. The first time I actually took it to a producer, I was 14. But I've been writing songs in some way, shape, or form for more than half of my life now, which is a wild thought. And it's my absolute favorite thing to do, but I had to really dig deep inside and figure out why it is that I love doing that so much. And I realized that it's because I feel more connected to myself and my emotions and my thought processes when I'm writing a song. And that personal level of I'm doing this to better understand where I'm at right now, you don't always get that when you're writing for someone else. And it took me a really long time to realize, like, oh, Geena, you do want to be an artist. Like, you don't just want to write songs for other people. You want to sing your own truth. And so I kind of pivoted, I would say, from trying to be a songwriter for other folks and just doing my own music, because that's ultimately what fulfilled me.
Yeah. It's interesting how we can be scared of our own aspirations and then rationalize ourselves into something that like we never really wanted to do. Like, oh, I don't want to be an artist. I'll be a songwriter. Like, you know, because being an artist, that's too scary to think about. Like, you know, I'll just be a songwriter, or I'll just be an instrumentalist, or I'll just put myself in this corner, you know, so that way I don't get my hopes up about anything.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't have the biggest of big Mariah Carey voices. I never have had, and I never will. It's not in my DNA. I can take as many voice lessons as I want, and I've taken many, and I'll never sound like that. And for a long time, I thought, well, I don't have a big voice. I'm just not meant to be an artist. All the artists, Madonna, Britney Spears, Kelly Clarkson, Adele, they all have really big voices. And I'm not one of them.
Right.
So I should just sit on the sidelines and do the back process, which is the songwriting.
But none of those artists write their own songs either, you know? So that's...
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You know?
But that you have to give yourself credit because that's a true art form in and of itself. And somebody's always going to be missing something, you know, whether that be like a crazy voice or great songwriting capabilities or a good ear to listen for things. But how do you make your artistry your own? You know, because people can still connect to it.
Right. And that was the thing, you know, I wouldn't want anyone else to sing Sick of Me because it would not make sense the same way that it makes sense for me.
Right.
My other songs, In March and I'm Not Ready and Crawling, the reason that I think those songs really connect with people, and I'm not saying they connect to, I mean, they have a few thousand plays on Spotify. Let's be real. I'm not reaching 100,000 people, but the people who do listen and say that they feel connected to those songs, it's because they're so specific and they're so a place and a time and they're so, you know, feelings felt in a split second that you can't have someone else feel those feelings and sing about them the same way.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
So who are your biggest influences, would you say? Is it the Adeles, the Mariah Careys?
No.
Okay.
Not really. As a kid, I loved, and I still love, especially now, Taylor Swift. I got my bangs cut when I was 15, I think, and everyone was like, oh, you look just like Taylor Swift, and you're a songwriter just like Taylor Swift. You're going to be the next Taylor Swift. And at the time, it was, you know, flattering, but looking back, I think it just set up all these really false expectations in my head that I could be that. I mean, Taylor Swift is a 1 in a million type person. I'm not saying that there aren't people who can be that successful, but she is she and I am me.
Right.
So why it's not helpful making a comparison like that. But I still love everything that she did, you know, when she was younger and the way that her artistry developed into what it is now. The fact that she just released basically 2 folk albums and they were her biggest albums almost of all time. Like that's bananas. I mean, crazy.
You're like I gotta be honest, I think you're the only person in my life that's a Taylor Swift fan.
You know what?
But I'm glad that you are.
Everyone who isn't or says they aren't, they're just lying. They love a song every now and then. I promise you, you can't say that 22 is not a bop. You just can't.
Okay, I won't.
I'm feeling 22. It's a bop.
So I would imagine Scooter versus Taylor. Your team Taylor.
Oh my God, I don't even want to talk about that.
Yeah, that's a lot. You don't have to give an opinion on that. But
I think artists should own their own. I mean, songwriters should own their music. I will always be of that opinion. And that is the only stance that I'm going to take.
You're like media trained, but this is not even media. But that's good. So when you do blow up, you can say I helped you practice.
Oh God, I don't think I'm media trained, but I'm glad you think so.
But we can slowly transition because you do work with artists in the industry, more from a digital marketing standpoint. Are you able to apply a lot of the things that you do for other artists for yourself, or is there a barrier there?
Ooh, this is an interesting question. I get this a lot, actually, believe it or not, from my own mother.
Wow.
Who's like, can't you just use your job to make your own career happen? And I'm like, oh, if it were that easy. Right. Yes, I've learned a lot of techniques and strategies and, different ways to engage audiences that I definitely think about applying in my own way. A lot of the things that we do at the label are for artists with already much more large followings, devoted followings, fan bases that are, 200,000 or 300,000 persons strong, right? You have super fans, and then you have casual fans, and then you have the people who discovered them through the radio. I don't have 500,000 people who are really caring about my career. Right. So it's different when you're thinking about digital marketing strategy for someone who there is a radio campaign. there is a press campaign. They're going to be doing, interviews with Rolling Stone, and they're going to be on Fallon or whatever. It's digital marketing strategy with a whole marketing plan is different than digital marketing strategy with a emerging artist.
So so I was going to ask you, where is artist development in the music industry right now? Does it exist? And if it does, are there successful examples that in your line of work,
That's really tough. Where is artist development in the music industry right now? I wish it was more of a focal point. I think, and I'm not an A&R, so no one can say that my opinion is the right opinion. Right. But from an outside perspective, what I feel like I'm seeing at labels just in general is they're signing talent that already has 1 million Instagram followers or 1 million TikTok followers and a streaming presence on Spotify, Apple, Amazon. And, they're signing people who have already toured and already done all of that work on their own, maybe with a management team. But I wouldn't say that too many labels are taking a chance right now on baby bands that don't have an established presence.
Which isn't totally bad, because it's a business transaction.
It is a business transaction.
They want to see that you've put in the work to invest in yourself, right?
For
but
sure.
At the same time, if you've put in all that work, why do you need to sign a record label?
Yes, but money.
Yeah.
The budgets are bigger when you're on a record label.
Yeah, and you touched on A&R, and it's important for people to know what that really means, because people don't, and I think that I asked you the question of where is artist development. I have my opinion, right? A&R is not finding artists on SoundCloud and posting pictures with a bunch of famous people on Instagram. Artist and repertoire is finding talent and also creating an environment to where that talent can flourish, whether that be from a songwriting perspective. So you find the producer, you find those musicians, you find that engineer. That's the repertoire part of it. You find what the repertoire could be, you match it with the artist, you develop that artist, you develop their careers, and you put them in positions to where they can succeed. That's A&R. A&R is not what we do today. And to answer my own question, I don't think that there's that much artist development going on because people don't want to take a risk, And the artists that do blow up, are calculated. There's a bunch of metrics that the music industry can use to determine, this artist is going to be successful. It doesn't work all the time, right?
No, I agree. I mean, it's hard in the current financial climate to consider making a, risky fiscal decision. I get that from the label's perspective, for sure. I think what you were saying is interesting about the repertoire. Often I find now that labels will sign talent that is already with an established following, and then they're like, okay, well, we'll figure out the repertoire from here. We'll put XYZ artist in a writing camp wherever with all of the best writers, and then we'll make the record from there. And it tends to work because that artist already has an established fan base. So...
Do you think there is something to writing camps, though? Like, I'm sure you've collaborated with folks in writing songs before. Yep. Do you feel like it's more advantageous to write by yourself, in a vacuum, or to, where you're sort of relying on those writing camps and you're not used to writing songs by yourself, but just with like 20, 30 people in the room?
I mean, I think it depends on the artist and the genre that you're writing in. For pop music, it tends to work well to have a writing camp. And, you emerge after 5 days with 30 writers with, maybe 10 really great songs that are pretty much done and pitchable to, just for an example, Dua Lipa or, Ava Max or whatever. I don't think they write their own songs. Maybe they do. If they do, then please forgive me for saying that. But, in that genre, I think it would make sense that it's more of a craft, almost, pop music, of how do you find the words? How do you put them together like a puzzle almost, to be the catchiest, the most, hard hitting piece of music in that genre that they can be. And those writers are highly trained or highly developed over that time to make exactly that product.
Right.
I think a writing camp for an emo band, I don't know if that makes sense,
Right.
or an indie rock. Like I don't know if I would put Tame Impala in a writing camp with 30 pop writers,
Yeah.
I don't think that would make sense. So I think it depends on both the type of artist and the genre for sure, whether or not a writing camp would make sense for them.
Yeah, I feel like maybe with pop music, it's unique in that it's that type of collaboration is acceptable, because even in hip hop too,
Right.
or R&B is similar, and but that's still popular music, right? But like in hip hop, for example, having somebody to write your own lyrics is taboo, right? Or even in those grunge band or rock situations, people those fan bases like to feel like they're connecting to the artist as much as possible. So if they find out, Nirvana didn't write this song, it's like, whoa, like what's going on?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you in that sense. There are certain fan bases where if they found out that the artist didn't write that song, they would be so upset.
Right.
But for example, I hate to go back to Dua Lipa. I adore her and I think that her music is great. And I think that her marketing campaigns have been great. The fans don't love her because she's a songwriter.
Right.
They love her for everything else that she is.
Right.
She's a great recording artist. She's a good performer and, she's getting better at dancing. But all of those other things and her social media presence and her fashion sense, that's what her fans love about her. They don't love her for being the person who wrote Levitating.
Right.
Yeah.
And don't get it twisted. Like being a recording artist and being an entertainer is a completely different monster. That's why not all songwriters can do that.
Yep.
Most of the world's best artists, most famous artists that we can point to did not write most of their songs.
I know. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that when I was younger.
Yeah,
Before I
you
started
don't know.
thinking about it.
Right. You think Michael Jackson wrote all that? Oh, because that just all came out of his brain.
Yeah, I mean, I really did think that he wrote all of those songs when I was younger. I didn't know,
But that's with every artist. It's so the music industry is an industry. There's different components. And even when you say you work in the music industry, what does that mean? Like, you work in live production? Do you work in publishing? Do you work at a label? So it's a lot of different factors.
There's so many sectors to the music industry that saying I work in music is such a non-answer. You'd have to say I work in the business of music. And then even in the business of music, there's so many different business things that you can do. And then in live production, there's even so many different areas of things you can do. You can be a stage manager, or you can run lights, or you can, be in charge of herding bands and artists to be in the right place. There's so many different components to each sector. So it's back.
I want to talk about your specific section, digital marketing in music. Can you give a description of what that is?
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, in a nutshell, I would say it is how the image of an artist is projected online and making sure that the projection of the image and the projection of the marketing campaign are in line. And it's the execution of the marketing campaign through the social media channels and image of the artist.
That was really good. That was a good answer.
I really tried.
Yeah. But it's specific to online. I hear you digital marketers in meetings using words like aggregates and, like just all of these words that I don't know. And sometimes I'm like, do all these like really mean anything? Like, is this like, a real like thing I could wrap my head around. Like, are y'all just like too smart for me? Like, I don't really know what you guys are doing, but I trust that you're doing it. You know.
I think you can learn almost everything if you have a really good sense of intuition and self-awareness, and strangely enough, a good sense of psychology of people. If you're perceptive of people, you can, and if your attention to detail is really good, and if you can write, it's not, I don't know if it's about smartness. I think it's about putting together all of those things and packaging them in a way that is professional, efficient, correct, plays into the strategy of the marketing plan.
Yeah.
Sounds like the artist.
Yeah. And I'm fortunate enough to support like the general marketing plan. So I kind of operate in the space of, like what would be the best for this artist, and like a super duper creative. And I feel like there might be sometimes sort of conflict with the general marketing plan and what can actually be executed in the digital space,
That's fair. I think they've had to change, or they should be changing, how budgets are allocated because we're in a global pandemic. No one's going to a concert right now. We need to allocate more money to digital.
Wow.
Welcome to my TED Talk. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk.
But we're also like on not a tightrope, but we're in a weird space because how long is this going to keep going? Like what?
Yeah,
are
that's true.
There certain things to invest in just because of the pandemic? And what if next year or even 6 months from now we have live shows? Like how do you balance that?
Yeah, but no one's going to put down their phone even after live shows open up. If anything, we're all going to be even more like socially incompetent and unaware how to talk to people, that we're all going to have our noses buried in our phones, even if we're at a show. It's still going to be, okay, well, how am I going to Instagram this and show my friend that I was at this show? Or how am I going to post this on Snapchat? Or which tweets am I going to tweet with which hashtag for the album? I think that's still going to be a focus even when we get back into normal life.
Very true. Very true.
Our phones aren't going away.
Right.
Social media is not going away.
Yeah.
So it's more important, I would say, to invest in something it's here to stay, put it that way.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be nice if it went away?
Oh, believe me, honey, I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be so nice to just have one day where I could just turn my phone off and not be anxious about all of the missed calls and missed texts and missed notifications and who posted what and which crisis and blah, blah, blah. It would be so nice to just have one day to turn off notifications.
Yeah. Are you more anxious about your work or your personal life? And this might be very telling for anyone who decides to want to work in the music industry. It's not all taking pictures with celebrities.
I would say I used to be more anxious about my work. Now that I have the established relationships at work, I think we trust each other more, and I'm trusted more that I'm going to do the right thing or do the correct job. The anxiety used to be in, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right word for this artist? Is this the right link? Is this the right blah? What if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? And now that I've been doing my job for 2.5 years, the scenarios that I can know in my head what could come of all of these what if questions or what is the right thing, I can filter through them more easily, and I have the backlog knowledge of if such and such goes wrong, there are 5 ways this can be fixed. Or if one thing goes wrong, for this thing it's the end of the world, but for this thing it's really not. When you're starting a job, you don't know yet what's the end of the world and what isn't.
Right. Yeah.
So
I think I appreciate you as an individual because I think we're in a very unique space. Being a musician or a creator who works in the music industry, I used to think that everybody who works in the music industry were musicians at some point, or like they at least they know how to relate to artists. And the fact is that they don't.
No.
And I think we exist in a really interesting space to where, you know, we have the super structured analytical side, and we know how to get tasks done, and we're super passionate about developing equity for artists. But we too are creatives, you know. So in either world, we seem a little weird, right? Like we have with a lot of my musician friends, they're like, wow, you know, sometimes they say, Tim, you seem super structured, you know, you seem super able to sort of put things together, you know, and then in the work world, it's like, oh, like you're super eclectic and like, or whatever it is, you know, I wouldn't use that word to describe me, but like, it just feels weird operating in that space. And a part of the reason why I did want to join the music industry is because when I found out, oh, like there's a bunch of non-musicians making decisions for musicians, you know, which is not always a bad thing, but oftentimes you see this person went to journalism school, or they went to marketing school, or they, you know, are a lawyer, whatever, and then they just happen to fumble in their way into the music industry, and they happen to be working for some of your favorite artists, right? And that to me seemed frustrating. It's like, whoa, like I devoted my life to this. Like I would hope that the people working on these projects are the same way. And then, you know, then as time developed, I'm like, oh, well, that's not necessarily the best thing. You want people who are good at their specific jobs, you know, not necessarily good at being an artist, because if, you know, they might still be doing that, or their heart might still be in that versus like making sure your album is the best and can be seen by everyone.
I think that's a valid concern to have, for sure. You want to believe that the people who are marketing your artists understand artistry the way that you do. Mm-hmm. But sometimes having that maybe more outside perspective, the one that's not quite as biased, is really helpful.
Right.
I think all the time about how lucky we are to work with people, you know, who some of them are not musicians at all and are just major fans. They're just huge fans of music and love music so much, and they studied something completely different that's not music industry, you know, and they got into the business because they're just such passionate music fans. And then on the other side, you have the musicians who also are working in the industry, the creatives. And the balance of having both of those minds who can understand both sides of the coin, it's really important to have both, I think. Right. It was funny because a few weeks ago, I was on an artist call and I was suggesting, oh, wouldn't it be great for, you know, the artist to record some TikTok duets. So on TikTok currently, there's a lot of people making sort of like demo backtracks or playing piano chords, and then they list the chords on the screen, and then, you know, the artist can duet with that TikTok. So they'll sing over top of whatever the music was that was created. And I said, you know, I think this would be so great for this artist. You know, the artist has a fantastic voice. It's really compelling. It's very unique. I think it would be an easy way for the artist to get a larger following and be more recognizable in the TikTok musician ecosystem. And the manager was like, but don't you understand how hard it is to just, you know, get a 1 minute, you know, backtrack and then have to write that? Like, you know, songwriting is not as easy as, you know, or whatever. And I don't think that there was any ill intention with that saying, because I don't think the manager is a songwriter either. Yeah. But it was so funny to hear that, because in my head I was thinking like, yeah, for 1 minute of music, if you invest maybe 15 to 20 minutes, you can make that happen. And if you're saying that 15 to 20 minutes to invest in a TikTok is not something that the artist can do, well, then that's something to think about, isn't it?
That is something to think about. But it is good to have that perspective. You know,
it is.
If I was just an artist, right, and not business savvy, I'm like, let's just give them all the money. Like, keep all your rights. Here's all the, not even advance. Here's free money. Just go make your art, you know?
If only. If only it worked like that.
But aren't there governments out there? Doesn't Canada give artists grants and stuff like that?
There are several governments, I think in Europe as well, where you can get artist grants if you apply and, you're doing it for the right reasons. Then yes. People should look into that more. And by people, I'm also looking at myself.
Well, especially now, right? And that kind of brings back to what I was talking about in the beginning, where we need to value the things that we take for granted now. Like live music and arts really helps people's mental health. Being able to go to a show and not think about work. So I wish that there was just more of a push, at least here in the United States, to value those things and pay people to a degree, right, for their contributions.
I think it's going to be interesting after everyone's vaccinated and we start to be able to go do things again with people. It's going to be interesting to see if industry values those experiences more, now in that after times, in the before times, going to shows I took for granted in the biggest way. It was just when you do it for work and you're at 3 to 4 shows a week, it gets tiring. You take it for granted and you're like, oh God, another show that I have to go to for work, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like, oh my God, I would kill to go to one show just this month. Just one show a month. I would do anything to do that.
Even if I didn't care. Or
even if it's not my favorite artist, even if it's like a, I don't know, heavy metal show, I'd still go. I'd put in my earplugs and I'd still go.
Yeah. What's that venue? It's like they got the 2 rooms. It's like a super low key venue.
Elsewhere?
No, not in Brooklyn, in Manhattan. Might be downtown. You know what I'm talking about? They got like 3 rooms.
Mercury Lounge?
No.
Rockwood Music Hall?
Rockwood.
There you go.
The Rockwood. Everybody plays at the Rockwood, right?
And I've played there, yeah.
Those are the shows where like, we got to go to the Rockwood. Okay, whatever. But I would die to go to the Rockwood right now. Just
I know.
See anybody. Yeah.
I know. I'm literally Rockwood Music Hall. Currently, they do. You can rent out one of the rooms or any of the rooms, and you can film in there. So they're trying to, keep the venue alive, basically, and find alternative ways to generate income, which I think is really smart.
Right.
And they also do a live stream, I think on Instagram or maybe on Facebook, where you can pay, I think, $5 to watch an entire night of live streamed shows from Rockwood.
Yeah.
Where you have the different bands coming on and, doing that.
And you don't have to pay $20 for a drink. Yeah.
Yeah, you can just, do your whatever, Trader Joe's wine.
Yeah, drink your Trader Joe's wine. All right, so towards the end, I like to read a music businessy article. And just like maybe get your take on it. So this one, Spotify, Apple, and others pay $424 million in historical unmatched royalties to Mechanical Licensing Collective. So just a total of 20 DSPs have transferred a combined $424 million and accrued historical unmatched royalties to the Mechanical Licensing Collective as required in order for them to seek the Music Modernization Act's limitation on liability for past infringement. Those DSPs include Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, SoundCloud, and others. Also delivered more than 1,800 files. So that's interesting. It's basically like a protection for these DSPs who are historically known for not paying royalties. And I've heard the argument, I think a couple years ago when this was happening, that, like a Spotify, for example, we can't pay everybody because not everyone has a super structured publishing set up. So it's like we just hold the money in this account and we don't know how to pay them. That's the excuse, right? And then artists are like, no, we've been telling you guys about this for a while. Please pay us our money, the little that we do make on your platform.
My eyes are rolling back in my head right now.
Yeah.
If you can't hear that in my voice.
Right. What's your take on that?
Well, I just think it's bananas that you would hold all of this income in a big pot and say, oh, I don't know how to pay it out, so I'm just not gonna. That's just rude.
Right.
It's disrespectful. And isn't it your job as that company that provides this music to so many people to figure out how to pay it out to the creators?
It's basically like when somebody owes you money and then they're like making up excuses as to why they can't pay you your money. Like, oh, well, I didn't know where you were. Like, hey, bro, you owe me this money.
What's your Venmo? I didn't know your Venmo. I don't have Venmo. I don't have Zella. I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. I think it's just excuses. They're just, I don't know.
Yeah. And to go on, so the article reads, just clarifying what the Music Modernization Act is, the MOC is a nonprofit entity. This is designated by the U.S. Copyright Office to develop and administer a mechanical licensing system that launched in 2021. The MOC is responsible for collecting and distributing royalties payable to songwriters and copyright owners by digital music services. So I feel like we are developing, and because I think what the copyright laws were like 7 years old or even something crazier than that, they hadn't been developed, they hadn't been transformed.
Yep.
So the fact that there is an effort, I think is good, but it might be a little too late. You know, this is something we should have been thinking about, especially during the digital age.
I mean, it's hard because how can you anticipate the way that a industry or the way that consumption is going to change? I don't think that the record people who were selling LPs could really anticipate, oh, there's a CD now. How is this going to change everything? They were scared, right? Mm-hmm. And then suddenly, when CDs were no longer a thing and it was all streaming, again, record companies were scared and, trying much harder, I think, to force feed CDs down people's throats rather than figure out how to make the most out of the streaming royalty.
Right.
And yeah, I think we're still in the process of coming to Jesus with that.
I feel like I may be wrong in this, but like with music and TV, I feel like those are really the only industries where the entire industry is transformed just by the way it's distributed, right? Like pizza is always going to be pizza, whether like you go into a restaurant and eat it or it gets delivered to you, right?
Yes.
But the way that those people are paid are different, and like music, I think holds that exclusive exception.
And I think it's also interesting to look at how people value music and value something that you can listen to 15,000 times versus a latte that you can consume in 5 minutes. And yet they're willing to pay $5 for that latte and not $5 for the EP or the CD.
Accessibility, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, you feel like you need coffee, right? But you also need music. So pay for it.
You're going to have that coffee for 5 minutes, then it's going to be gone and you're never going to get it back.
So the issue is twofold, right? It's changing how people look at music, but it's also developing the digital age to where artists are paid, on the back end, right? For their services. Because, the pay rate for these DSPs is ridiculous. Artists should be getting, and songwriters should be getting more for that. And also, too, if people learn how to value music, then artists could get paid from both ends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bit of both.
Last thing. Kim Kaye and Kanye.
Oh, man.
Divorce. Sad.
Really sad. Can't say I didn't see it coming, but still kind of sad that it didn't work out. I thought they were that dysfunctional couple that was just maybe just going to make it, they're so larger than life that I thought that maybe because they were both so incredibly larger than life that would just be their life and it would just work. But I mean,
right. We should care about these people as individuals and also realize we don't know anything about them. But I am super excited for all the great music that's going to come out of this. I feel like Kanye is gonna
Kanye's breakup album.
On that
Are you sure you want that?
Yeah, I'm not sure actually. Do you have anything you want to plug? Are you working on anything right now? Are you just living life? What's going on?
Oh man, I'm working on so much music. I will probably have an EP coming later this year, which is very exciting. I'm really stoked about that. Anything else I want to plug? Hi mom, hi dad, Zach, I love you, and that's it.
Awesome. Well, Geena Kaye, everybody, go check her out. All the streamings, all the digitals.
At Geena Kaye on everything.
That one. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.